Walk into any council house in 1957 and you would find something that would shock today's cleaning influencers. There were no plastic spray bottles, no microfiber cloths, no expensive disinfectants lined up under the sink. And yet those houses gleamed. The brass on the front door shone like a mirror. The doorstep was whiter than fresh snow. The windows sparkled so bright the postman could see his own face in them. Today, the average British family spends over £200 a year on cleaning products. Our grandmothers spent next to nothing. Number 17 on this list was quietly phased out by manufacturers in the 1980s because it worked too well. And number 3? Dermatologists are now begging us to bring it back. Hit that subscribe button before we start, because what you are about to learn could save you a fortune. Let us count down 25 forgotten British habits that kept houses spotless without spending a penny. Number 25. Newspaper for the windows. Before Windoline took over in the 1970s, every British housewife knew the only thing that gave glass a proper streak-free shine was yesterday's Daily Mirror. Mum would scrunch a sheet into a tight ball, dunk it in a bucket of warm water with a splash of malt vinegar, maybe a tablespoon to a pint, and rub it across the panes in tight circles. The ink carried tiny abrasive particles that buffed the glass smooth, while the vinegar cut through grease from coal smoke and frying pans. A second dry sheet polished it off. The windows squeaked when you wiped them. They actually squeaked. Cost? Nothing. The paper was already paid for. Modern glass sprays contain ammonia that streaks in direct sunlight, which is why your windows always look smeared at noon. Newspaper never streaked. Some grandmothers swore by the Times for its thicker stock. The kitchen window stayed crystal clear until the next coal delivery. Number 24. Damp dusting before sweeping. Your grandmother would never have run a hoover over a dusty room. That just kicked everything into the air to settle again 5 minutes later. Her order was sacred. Damp dust first, sweep second. A clean rag, dipped in cold water with a few drops of vinegar, wrung out until barely moist, ran over every surface in the parlour. Mantelpiece, picture frames, skirting boards, the top of the wireless cabinet, the lampshade, the gas meter. The dust clung to the cloth instead of floating off. Only then did she bring out the Eubank carpet sweeper. The whole routine took 20 minutes, but it meant the room stayed clean for a week instead of a day. Modern dusting sprays just push particles around the room. The damp rag captures them. NHS guidance for asthma households now recommends this exact technique. Our grandmothers worked it out without a single allergist. Number 23. Vinegar in the rinse water. A bottle of Sarson's malt vinegar sat under every sink in Britain, and only half of it ever made it onto chips. The other half went into rinse water. A capful in the bucket when you mopped the lino. 2 capfuls in the final laundry rinse to soften towels. A quarter pint in the kettle once a fortnight to dissolve limescale. The acid neutralized soap residue, which is what made everything feel sticky and dingy. White vinegar at 4p a bottle replaced about 8 different products on a modern shelf. Towels came off the line as soft as new. The kitchen floor never had that grey film that supermarket cleaners leave behind. Even better, vinegar is antibacterial enough that food safety inspectors now use diluted versions in commercial kitchens. Your grandmother had a chemistry degree she never knew about, taught to her by her own mother over a copper of boiling whites. Number 22. Bicarbonate of soda paste for the sink. Long before Cif cream came in a yellow bottle, the kitchen sink got cleaned with one ingredient that cost a halfpenny. 2 tablespoons of bicarbonate of soda mixed with a teaspoon of water made a gritty white paste. Mum would scoop it onto a damp cloth and scrub the porcelain in slow circles. Tea stains lifted out. Grease vanished. The plug hole, scrubbed with the same paste and a worn-down toothbrush, came up gleaming. A pinch sprinkled down the drain weekly with a kettle of boiling water meant blocked sinks were practically unheard of in post-war terraces. A drum of bicarb cost 3p and lasted 6 months. Today's specialized drain cleaners contain caustic soda that eats your pipes from the inside. Bicarbonate just neutralizes odors and lifts grime. Builders working on 1950s houses today still find the original Belfast sinks intact, scrubbed thin in places but never corroded. Number 21. Cold tea for the wooden furniture. This one will sound mad until you try it. The teapot would sit on the dresser after breakfast, dregs and all, and rather than pour the leftover tea down the sink, your grandmother strained it into a jam jar. Once cold, she dipped a soft cloth in the tea and wiped down the dining table, the sideboard, the legs of the piano. The tannins in the tea darkened tiny scratches and fed the wood, while the slight acidity dissolved fingerprints and food smudges. A second dry duster brought up a deep, mellow shine. No streaks, no silicone buildup, no suspicious chemical smell that lingered for days. Modern furniture polishes contain solvents that actually dry out wood over time, which is why your grandmother's mahogany sideboard still glows after 70 years and your IKEA table looks 10 years old after 18 months. A pot of tea cleaned the whole front room. Number 20. Salt on the red wine spill. Christmas Eve, 1962. A glass of port goes flying across the deep red carpet. Your grandmother does not panic. She does not run for a cloth. She walks calmly to the kitchen, returns with the salt cellar, and tips a small mountain directly onto the wet patch. The salt drinks the wine up like a sponge, going pink, then deep purple, drawing the stain out of the wool fibers before it can set. After 20 minutes, she sweeps the damp salt into the dustpan. The carpet is unmarked. A box of Saxa cost twopence and saved a carpet that cost 12 guineas. Modern carpet stain removers cost £5 a bottle and rarely work on dried stains. The salt trick only works if you act fast, which is why every dining table in post-war Britain had a salt cellar within arm's reach. It was not just for the food. Number 19. The donkey stone doorstep. Walk down any terraced street in Lancashire or Yorkshire in 1955 and you would see them on every doorstep. Bright cream or buttery yellow stripes painted onto the threshold stone. The donkey stone, named after the donkey trademark stamped on the side, was a cake of crushed stone, cement and bleach powder that you rubbed wet onto the front step. As it dried, it left a smooth-coloured film that hid scuffs and signalled to the whole street that this was a proud, clean home. The rag and bone man would swap a fresh donkey stone for any old clothes you had spare, so it cost literally nothing in cash. Women would compete down the row, scrubbing their steps every Friday morning before the men came home. The last donkey stone factory in Manchester closed in 1979. With it went a 100-year-old visual language that told you everything about a household before you knocked. Number 18. Beating the rugs in the back garden. First pattern break. Here is something dust mite scientists have only just rediscovered. Every Saturday morning, the front room rug came up off the floorboards, was carried out into the backyard and slung over the washing line. Then, your grandmother went at it with a wicker carpet beater, that lollipop-shaped tool that looked like something from a witch trial. She would whack it 20 or 30 times. Clouds of dust billowed out into the spring air. The rug, lighter by half a pound, went back into the parlour fresh as new. Modern hoovers, even the expensive ones, only remove about 60% of embedded dust. A proper beating gets nearly all of it, plus the dust mites, plus their droppings, plus the dead skin that feeds them. This is now medical fact. Allergists tested it at Imperial College in 2018 and found beaten rugs had measurably lower allergen counts than vacuumed ones. Your grandmother knew this from the third sneeze. Number 17. Black lead on the kitchen range. Before stainless steel, every British kitchen had a cast iron range that needed black leading once a week, or it would rust into a heap of orange flakes. Zebra brand black lead came in a small tin that cost a few pence and lasted nearly a year. You scooped a knob of the dark grey paste onto a brush, worked it into the cold range in firm circles, then buffed it with a clean rag until the metal turned a deep velvety black that gleamed like a piano. The smell was distinctive, faintly metallic and slightly sweet. The whole job took half an hour. The range came out looking better than the day it was installed. Manufacturers reformulated black lead in the 1980s with weaker compounds because the original formula was so effective it lasted weeks between applications. The new version sold more tins. That is why your grandmother's range, restored today, still takes black lead beautifully, while modern equivalents flake within a month. Number 16. Reckitt's Blue in the rinse water. Second pattern break. Here is one the laundry industry never wants you to remember. Whites yellow with age. Every washerwoman in Britain knew this. The trick was not bleach, which damaged the fibres and turned cotton brittle. The trick was a small muslin bag of Reckitt's Blue dropped into the final rinse water until it tinted the water the faintest pale blue. The blue dye counteracted the yellow tone in the fabric through a simple optical illusion called colour cancellation. Your sheets came off the line looking whiter than fresh snow without a single damaging chemical. A bag of Reckitt's Blue cost 1 penny and treated about 30 washloads. Modern detergents now add the same blue dye and call it a brightening agent, charging you £4 a bottle for the privilege. Your grandmother bought it for a penny and added it herself. The active ingredient is called Prussian blue, and it has been brightening fabric since 1870. Number 15. Carbolic soap for everything. Wright's coal tar soap, that orange-red bar with the medicinal smell, was the workhorse of the British bathroom and kitchen alike. A single bar at 3p cleaned hands, scrubbed collars, washed dogs, mopped floors, and disinfected the larder shelves. The phenol content gave it real antibacterial power, the kind hospitals used in the operating theatres of the day. Your grandmother kept 1 bar at the kitchen sink, 1 at the scullery, and 1 at the bath. The smell, sharp and tarry, signalled cleanliness in a way that no fragrance product can replicate. Tellingly, the original Wright's formula was diluted in 1996 to remove coal tar over health worries that turned out to be largely unfounded for normal use. The modern version is essentially scented soap. Original Wright's, if you can find it from before 1996 at a car boot sale, still sells for £10 a bar to people who remember what proper carbolic could do. Number 14. Half an onion for greenhouse glass. This one sounds like a wind-up. It is not. If you grew tomatoes in a greenhouse, the glass got smeared with a sticky green algae that ordinary water would not shift. Your granddad's trick was to cut an onion in half and rub the cut side directly onto the glass. The onion juice contained enough natural sulfur compounds to dissolve the algae on contact, and the slight oiliness left a film that prevented regrowth for weeks. After the rubdown, a quick wipe with a damp cloth and the panes were clear. The onion cost a halfpenny from the allotment. Greenhouse glass cleaner today costs £6 a bottle and is largely just diluted vinegar with detergent. The onion method also worked on shower screens once those started appearing in the 1970s. The smell faded within an hour. Allotment holders in their 70s still swear by it. Nobody has ever beaten an onion for greenhouse glass. Number 13. Lemon halves with salt for lime scale. Third pattern break. The Romans cleaned their bronze with this, and your grandmother never stopped. Hard water in Kent, Essex and Cambridgeshire turned every kettle, tap and copper pan into a calcified mess within weeks. The fix was a lemon, cut in half, the cut side dipped into table salt until it looked like a sugared grapefruit. Then she scrubbed. The citric acid dissolved the calcium carbonate, while the salt provided a fine abrasive that lifted tarnish off copper and brass without scratching. A copper-bottom Mrs. Beaton-era jam pan came up looking new in 5 minutes. The lemon, by then exhausted of juice, went into the bin or a hot toddy. Cost: about twopence for the lemon. Modern descalers cost £3 and contain hydrochloric acid that pits the metal. The lemon and salt method is now used in National Trust kitchens to clean original Victorian copperware. Conservation experts publish papers on it. Your grandmother just called it Tuesday. Number 12. Old stockings for the ornaments. Nylon stockings laddered constantly in the 1950s. A pair cost about 3 shillings, expensive enough that no woman threw a laddered pair away. They went into the cleaning drawer. A single old stocking, balled up, was the perfect tool for dusting the ornaments on the mantelpiece. The slight static cling of nylon attracted dust the way nothing else could, and the stretchy fabric got into the curves of china dogs and brass candlesticks where a duster could not reach. Your grandmother kept a separate stocking for the picture frames and one for the lampshades. 2 pairs of laddered stockings replaced about 4 cleaning tools. They lasted years. Modern microfiber cloths, which cost £3 for a pack of 6, do exactly the same job using exactly the same static principle. The technology is identical. Your grandmother just got there 50 years earlier with something she would otherwise have thrown away. Number 11. The boot scraping rule. Every front door in Britain had a cast iron boot scraper sunk into the path, and the rule about using it was absolute. You did not enter the house with dirty boots. You scraped the soles top, bottom and sides on the iron blade until they were clean. Then, inside the porch, you wiped them on a coarse choir mat. Then, just inside the front door, on a softer mat. 3 lines of defense before any mud reached the parlor carpet. This single discipline meant carpets needed cleaning twice a year instead of twice a month. It meant lino mopping was a 5-minute job instead of an hour. It meant the front room could keep its good rug down all year round without grime working into the pile. The boot scraper has vanished from new builds. Carpet cleaning companies have grown into a £1 billion industry. The two facts are not unrelated. Your grandmother kept her house clean by stopping dirt at the door. Number 10. Homemade beeswax polish. A jar of pure beeswax polish, made on the kitchen table, cost about 9p and lasted 3 years. Your grandmother grated a small block of pure beeswax, 2 ounces, into a jam jar, covered it with a 1/4 pint of pure turpentine and let it dissolve overnight. The result was a soft yellow paste that she applied sparingly to wooden surfaces with a soft rag, then buffed off vigorously with a clean cloth. The wax fed the wood, sealed the grain against moisture, and brought up a deep, warm glow that no modern silicone polish can match. Antique dealers will tell you a piece of furniture polished with real beeswax for 50 years is worth twice as much as the same piece treated with pledge. The silicone in modern sprays actually penetrates the grain and prevents future polishing or restoration. Your grandmother's sideboard is fixable. Yours is not. The difference is one homemade jam jar. Number 9. Soda crystals in the wash water. Before Persil pods and bold liquid, every wash started with a handful of soda crystals dissolved in the boiler. Pure sodium carbonate, sold in a blue bag at the corner shop for 2p. The crystals softened the hard water, helped the soap lather properly, lifted grease from collars and cuffs, and stopped towels going stiff. A single bag did about 40 wash loads. Modern detergents have to add water softeners chemically because they cannot rely on you adding soda separately. That is why washing powder contains so many ingredients you cannot pronounce. Soda crystals are still sold today, often in the same blue and white packaging, hidden on the bottom shelf for about £1 a kilo. People who have rediscovered them will tell you their whites have never been whiter. Plumbers love them too. A handful down the kitchen sink each week with a kettle of boiling water clears every drain in the house. Number 8. The Friday Brasso routine. 4th pattern break. Here is something that defined a household before anyone had even seen the inside of it. The brass on the front door, the letterbox, the door knocker, the house number. All of it had to be polished every Friday, without exception. A tin of Brasso, 3p, sat on the hall shelf next to a folded square of cotton flannel. Your grandmother dabbed Brasso onto the cloth, worked it into the brass in tight circles until the metal went dull and grey, then buffed it furiously with a clean dry cloth until it shone like gold. The whole house was judged on the front door. Visitors knew before they knocked whether this was a proud household. A neighbour with dull brass was a neighbour having a hard week, and someone would quietly bring round a stew. The brass on a Friday polished house caught the gas lamps in the evening. Your grandmother shone for the street. Number 7. The line drying rule. Every Monday was wash day, and every Monday your grandmother prayed for sun and a stiff breeze. The reason was not just drying speed. Sunlight is the strongest natural bleach there is. Ultraviolet rays break down stain molecules at the molecular level, whitening cottons and linens in a way no detergent can match. White nappies that came off the line after 6 hours of summer sun were brighter than any tumble dryer can produce, plus they smelled of fresh air, a scent Lenore has spent millions trying to bottle. The wind agitated the fabric, fluffing it up so it never went stiff. Cost: nothing. Modern laundry uses about 12% of household electricity, much of it from tumble dryers. Your grandmother used the sun. Every prison laundry, hospital laundry, And high-end hotel laundry in Europe still line dries whites for one reason. Nothing on Earth makes cotton whiter than sunshine. The technology is 6 billion years old. Number 6. Stale bread for the wallpaper. This sounds absurd until you watch a museum conservator do it. When your grandmother's wallpaper got smudged with little fingerprints or candle smoke marks, she did not scrub it with a wet cloth, which would lift the color and tear the paper. She tore the crust off a stale white loaf, rolled the soft inside between her palms into a ball about the size of a tennis ball, and rubbed it gently across the marks. The bread, slightly damp from her hands, lifted the dirt off the paper without wetting the surface. As one side got grubby, she turned the ball and used a clean section. By the end, the wallpaper looked freshly hung. The dirty bread went to the chickens or the compost. National Gallery conservators still use this exact method to clean fragile prints and pastels. They call it dry cleaning with bread. Your grandmother called it Tuesday afternoon. Number 5. Cinders for the carpets. Before bagless vacuums, the parlor rug got a thorough freshening with a method that sounds backwards but worked beautifully. Your grandmother saved the cool cinders and ash from yesterday's coal fire in a pail. Slightly damp cinders, sprinkled liberally across the rug and left to sit for 10 minutes, absorbed odors, lifted grease, and trapped fine dust. She then swept the cinders up with a stiff brush, taking the grime and pet hair with them. The carpet came up freshened, deodorized, and slightly more colorful because the slight alkalinity of wood ash actually brightened wool dyes. The cost was nothing. The cinders were a waste product. Modern carpet powders cost £5 a tin and contain artificial fragrance plus inert filler. Cinders contain potash, which is genuinely deodorizing. Wool restorers in Yorkshire still use ash baths to refresh antique rugs. Your grandmother's parlour smelled of nothing, which in cleaning terms is the highest compliment. Number 4. The shoes-off rule at the door. 10% of British households followed it strictly in 1955. By 2015, that figure had collapsed to under 2%. The rule was simple. Outdoor shoes came off the moment you crossed the threshold. They went onto a wooden rack in the porch or the bottom of the cupboard under the stairs. Slippers, kept warm by the fire, went on instead. The reason was not just dirt. Shoes carry tar from the road, lead from petrol residues, dog mess in trace amounts, agricultural chemicals from country lanes, and a remarkable list of bacteria. Public health studies in 2008 found that the average shoe carries more E. coli than a toilet seat. Your grandmother knew none of this technically and all of it instinctively. Houses where shoes came off had carpets that lasted 3 times longer, fewer respiratory infections in children, and a calmer atmosphere because slippered feet are quieter. It cost nothing, it just required a habit. Number 3. Open windows every morning. The first thing your grandmother did on rising, before kettle, before fire, before tea, was open every window in the house for 10 minutes, regardless of weather. In January, in a thunderstorm, it did not matter. The morning airing was non-negotiable. Stale night air, full of carbon dioxide and humidity, was pushed out by fresh, cold air from the garden. The bedding got peeled back to air at the same time. The whole house exchanged its atmosphere in under a quarter of an hour. The result was no condensation, no mold around the window frames, no stale smell, and lower indoor humidity that meant clothes lasted longer in the wardrobe. Modern double-glazed homes have such poor ventilation that the World Health Organization now lists indoor air pollution as worse than outdoor in many British homes. Mold-related repairs cost the NHS millions. Your grandmother fixed it for free with a window catch and 10 minutes of cold. Number 2. The bed made before breakfast. The rule was iron. You did not leave the bedroom without making the bed. Sheets straightened, blankets pulled up, eiderdowns smoothed flat, pillows plumped. But here is what most people forget. The bed was first thrown completely open, sheets pulled right back, mattress exposed for at least 15 minutes while you washed and dressed. This let the moisture from your body, about a pint released during sleep, evaporate into the cold morning air rather than soak into the mattress. Then the bed was made. The bedroom got cleaner, the mattress lasted decades, and dust mites, which thrive in warm, damp bedding, never got established. Modern sleep advice from the Sleep Council is identical. Air the bed before making it. Your grandmother did this without a single magazine article. The mattress in her spare room is still firm at 50 years old. Yours, replaced every 8, costs £800 a pop. Hers cost less, lasted longer, and never harboured anything alive. Number 1. The Saturday top to bottom. Every Saturday morning, without fail, the entire house got cleaned in a single methodical sweep that took your grandmother 3 hours flat. The rule was top to bottom, back to front. Never repeat a room. She started at the highest point in the back bedroom, dusting the picture rail and light fitting, then worked downward through furniture, skirting, and finally the floor. Then onto the next room, always moving toward the front door. Last job was the doorstep and the front step itself. By midday, the whole house was spotless. Every surface, every corner, no overlap, no missed bits. The genius was the routine. By doing the same thing every Saturday in the same order, nothing ever got dirty enough to need deep cleaning. Spring cleaning was a maintenance event, not a rescue mission. Your grandmother never had to spend a weekend hauling furniture about because she had spent 30 Saturdays preventing it. 3 hours a week saved her 3 days a year. Pick one of these to try this week, drop it in the comments, and tell me whether your grandmother knew something the cleaning industry has spent 50 years trying to make us forget.